Now, see, this was supposed to be victory week. It's supposed to be a week where, I can talk my stuff to Eagles fans, but, that didn't happen. So, yeah. Yeah, this is gonna be one of those episodes. I had a lot planned and a lot said. I definitely was talking a lot of junk to a lot of people about this game, and it's uh, it's it's messed me up. So let's just get into everything. Devondre Campbell, quits on his team. Travis Hunter wins the Heisman. Steelers versus Eagles, Lions versus Bills, Washington versus the Saints, and the Packers against the Seahawks on the 55th episode of the Football Junkies podcast. Yeah, yeah. This is how I'm going to sound. You know, because of my disappointment within my team. Is what I would say if I was one of these delusional Steelers fans or any of these other fans that would think that it is the end of the world because we lost to a team that is way better than our team. But you know what? None of that matters because you know why? This is the 55th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, okay? I am your host with the most, okay? I am your chief Bagrodamus. I am the man with the plan. I am currently a GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it, okay? Because guess what? Everything is going to be all right because guess what? We play on Saturday. We're going to win the division. We're going to hold the third seed and we're going to go to the Super Bowl this year. So guess what? I know you're happy. I'm happy too. We got a lot to talk about with this episode. A lot of hot takes, a lot of hot opinions, but guess what? It's going to be amazing, okay? So guess what? I know you're ready. I'm ready too. So let's do this thing, okay? On three. 1, 2, 3. Let's lock in. All right, folks, let's not waste any more time. Let us get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get to the games, we got to talk about some hot things that have happened, okay? And some people may not like what I'm about to say, but I like to look things from different perspectives. So, let's just get into the most talked about situation that has happened since last week. Devondre Campbell walked out on the team during the game. So when I was watching the game, I'm seeing Devondre Campbell got a towel on, and he's walking back. So I'm thinking, maybe he got to go to the bathroom. Maybe something's bothering him. Maybe he's, sick or something. No, he quit on the team. And then next thing I know, my phone was just going off. And I'm just like, oh man, this. Maybe he just told that just to say. Maybe he was just being sarcastic. Maybe he was upset or whatever. But no, he actually did quit on the team. And now he's officially suspended for 3 games. So he cannot sign with any other team. But this is what Kyle Shanahan had to say about this whole debacle. So, and I quote, "We are working through the semantics of exactly how to deal with it, but you guys heard from me last night. You guys heard from our players. His actions from the game is not something you can do to your team or your teammates and still be a part of your team." Okay? That's one person. Charvarius Ward. That's some sucker shit. It definitely hurt the team. Probably going to get cut soon. Okay? That's 2. George Kittle. It's hard to win football games when someone doesn't want to play football. I think that's ignorant. I think that it's dumb. I think it's just stupid and it's very immature. I just don't see how you could do something like that to your team. And I quote. Now, it probably seemed like I probably just mashed them all together, but it was just quote after quote after quote. So let's just get into his stats because basically his season is over with. Devondre Campbell finished this season with 44 tackles and 2 pass deflections. Now, I'm going to try to break things down and try to do things from different perspectives, okay? So I need you to follow me, my fellow junkies. So on one hand, I understand the frustrations of the team. I do. I get it. I am not trying to justify Devondre Campbell's actions. I think they are, very troubling, and I think, that definitely says a lot. For Devondre Campbell, it looks bad on you because you walked out on the team in one of the most important games of the season. If they would have won that game, they still would have had somewhat of a chance of making it into the playoffs. Because they lost that game, I think now they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. My whole problem with this is, what gives you the right to walk out on the team? Charvarius Ward is still dealing with the passing of his 1-year-old daughter. Thoughts and prayers to him. Trent Williams is dealing with injuries while also coping the loss of his newborn babies. Prayers and thoughts to his family as well. Ricky Pearsall almost died in the summer because he got robbed for his watch. Fred Warner is playing on a messed up ankle. George Kittle is dealing with injuries. Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. Christian McCaffrey is out for the season. And the fact that you decided to walk out on the team definitely says a lot. And now what's going to happen is you are going to have to figure out a way of how you can eliminate this image that is now being painted about you. Because you walked out on a team that needed you. And you can't say, well, they did me wrong or, oh, this and that. You can't do all that. Because you know why? Because you're a free agent after this season. Teams are going to look at that. Everyone saw that game. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more conversations that are being had behind closed doors. So again, this was the wrong time for you to do it. If you did not want to play this game, then you should have found a way for you not to play this game. Simple as that. Compared to walking out during the game is going. While the game is still at a point where something can happen. A play could be made that can put the team in a winning position. But you walked out on the team. Now, from his perspective, I can't even speak. It's definitely the coffee. From his perspective, he's probably thinking, man, I'm about to lose a majority of my snaps because Dre Greenlaw is back. Man, what am I supposed to do now? But at the same time, it shouldn't matter because guess what? Dre Greenlaw, he's probably on a snap count anyway. So either way, you would still be getting some snaps. You probably would be splitting them, with him. But for the majority, Dre Greenlaw is going to get those snaps because why? He plays a pivotal role on the defense. This was expected. You knew what you were getting once you signed with the team. Now, my only question is this. Was there an agreement in place prior to him signing when it came to this very situation? Because someone isn't just going to just walk out without there being something, said and agreed upon prior to him signing with the 49ers. Now, I know there's probably some people that are probably thinking and probably have a scrunched up face right now. They're probably thinking, what are you talking about? Devondre Campbell could have signed with any other team. He could have signed with 31 other teams, right? What was said that gave him the reassurance that, okay, I'm going to get a majority of the snaps. I'm going to be working with Fred Warner and whatnot. I'm fine. What exactly happened? Because since then, all we've heard is from the player's perspective. We haven't heard anything from Devondre Campbell. At some point, you're going to have to say something. At some point. Because now this thing is continuing to go on. And it's going to continue to go into the end of the season. Because why? You have yet to say anything. You have yet to tell your side of the story. And I think for me personally, I would love to hear his side of the story just so I can understand the entirety of this entire situation. Because now all I'm hearing is all the frustrated, players who have every right to be frustrated because a lot of them are dealing with real life situations outside of this football. Like, People have lost children. People have lost family members. People are dealing with, injuries that they should be, trying to rest. But they're trying to go to the playoffs. They're trying to get back where they once were a few years ago. And for you to leave, come on, bro. Come on. You just cannot do that. And I've said this to a few friends of mine, and I will say this publicly. This is going to affect him in free agency tremendously. Because whenever they start talking about money and agreements and contracts and whatnot, they're going to bring this up. I guarantee you. Watch. Watch what I say. I know I may be a little bit crazy and whatnot, but watch what I say. This is going to come back in a different way. And it's probably going to haunt him. It is. There's just certain things you just don't do. And this is one of them. You never walk out on your team. You always fight with your team to the end. I don't care if the score is 98-0. You still fight with the team. Now, another controversial topic that definitely needs to be talked about. Travis Hunter winning the Heisman. Now, this is just my personal opinion. I would have thought that, they would have gave both Travis and Ashton Genty the Heisman. Me personally, I feel like both of them should have been co-Heisman winners because both of them were 1A and 1B, the best college football players this season, right? People were watching, just as many Colorado games as they were, when it came to the Boise State games. So there's no way that you can really say, oh, this person was better than that person. But ultimately, it happened. Now, when we look at their stats, right? Travis Hunter's offensive snaps, stats. It's definitely the coffee. 92 receptions for 1,152 receiving yards. He averaged 12.5 receiving yards per reception and 14 touchdowns. His defensive stats, 31 total tackles, 11 pass deflections, 1 forced fumble, 4 interceptions. Okay. Ashton Genty, 344 carries for 2,497 rushing yards, 29 touchdowns, and he averaged 7.3 rushing yards per carry. Now, granted, I understand that the last two-way player to win the Heisman was Charles Woodson in the late 90s. I think it was 97, if I'm not mistaken. I understand that. And I understand, the ramifications that come with winning the Heisman. However, if I am a media person, if I'm a person that is on the board when it comes to voting for the Heisman, I cannot say this person is better than that person. And I understand there are people that are probably saying, well, you never played football before, so you wouldn't know. Yes, I understand that, but at the end of the day, when you have two dynamic players that are doing this, you can't really weed out and say, oh, this person was better than that person. You just can't. And even when you look at the votes, Travis Hunter earned 552 first place votes, while Ashton Genty only earned 309. That's a 243 first place point differential. Okay? When we look at the total votes, Hunter had 2,231 total votes, while Genty had 2,017 votes. That's a 214 total vote differential. And so the reason why I'm saying all these things is because what we have here is a situation where the media in some ways voted for Travis Hunter. And now before I go any further, I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on Travis Hunter, that I don't like Travis Hunter. No, I'm a really big Travis Hunter fan. Love him. I know he's going to be a top 3 pick. I know he is. I know he's going to do phenomenal things. But when it comes to this Heisman stuff, when it comes to the voting, it got a little bit shaky for me. It really did. And I kept on saying it leading up to the Heisman. Both of those two should have just gotten the Heisman. You should have just gave it to the both of them, because you can't say this person is better than the other person. Now, the only difference between the two is Ashton Genty carried the team into the college playoffs, Because now, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have a first round bye. So they don't even have to face anybody. They have to wait. They can rest, recoup, and prepare a game plan for whoever they have to go up against. Colorado didn't make it to the college playoffs. So if you want to base that for the Heisman voting, okay, that's perfectly fine. But all of this other stuff, oh, he's a two-way player, oh, he did this, oh, he did that. If I'm not mistaken, and I've been trying to find it, for the longest time, I don't think Travis Hunter was first in any of the statistics when it comes to receiver and corner. Meanwhile, Ashton Jeanty, if I'm not mistaken, he was. So again, this was just a little bit too close to count. It really was. And, Ashton Jeanty, he said how he felt, once everything was done. I sense the frustration coming from him. I really do. But that's just, unfortunately, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Now, I will say this. I think if Ashton Jeanty would have broken Barry Sanders' record, for sure they would have had to give it to Ashton Jeanty. 100%. They would have had to make him the unanimous Heisman winner. They would have had to. But those are just my thoughts and opinions. If you got anything contradicting that, guess what? You can go on our Instagram at football_junkiespod. Go in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about the whole Heisman situation. Now, let's get into these games, okay? Oh, I forgot. I got to put this out here, and I'll probably say it again at the end of the episode. There may be or may not be an episode next week simply because, Christmas is next week and, got to get things together and whatnot. So there may or may not. If there is or if there isn't, I'll be sure to let you guys know and, all that great stuff. Now, let's get into the game that I thought I was going to be able to talk my stuff, but I couldn't because we lost. But it's okay because guess what? It doesn't really affect us. And that is the Pennsylvania Bowl, as I call it. Let's just get into it. Let's just get it over with. Russell Wilson, 14 for 22, 128 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 5.8 yards per attempt, and a 63.6 completion percentage. Najee Harris, 6 attempts for 14 rushing yards, 2.3 rushing yards per carry. Calvin Austin, 5 targets for 5 receptions, 65 receiving yards, 13 receiving yards per reception. Jalen Hurts, 25 for 32, 290 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 9.1 yards per attempt, and a 78.1 completion percentage. Saquon Barkley, 19 attempts for 65 rushing yards, 3.4 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. A.J. Brown, 11 targets for 8 receptions, 110 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 13.8 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say. This was a really good game. It was a very chippy game. As much as I want to, be that fan and say, well, they didn't call anything about Jalen Carter, or they didn't call anything about T.J. Watt being held, or they didn't call this, they didn't call that. Most likely they wasn't going to do it anyway. Especially of how rooted this rivalry is, they wasn't going to do that. It's like the Ravens and Steelers. If you would lose your mind off of every call that isn't being noticed, you would have lost your mind. But this is what I will say. And I'm gonna start with the Eagles first, get them out the way, and then I can talk about my Steelers. But before we go any further, Mike from the Not That Serious podcast, hey bro, you got it. Y'all won. All right, congratulations to y'all. Congratulations, Not That Serious podcast. Mike, Elzy, Dr. Waff, Corey, Q, Mike, all them guys. Shout out to them. Great podcast to listen to. But most importantly, Mike, Elzy, congratulations. You guys won. If you guys don't know, they're very big Eagles fans. And me and Mike was going back and forth on Twitter about it and whatnot. But don't nobody care about that. This is what I will say. The Eagles controlled this game. From start to finish, they controlled this game. The reason why I say that is because when you look at their time possession was 39 minutes and 52 seconds. Pittsburgh's time of possession was only 20 minutes. This team was controlling the field. We have now entered that part of the season, even though the regular season is about to end and the playoffs are getting ready to start. We have hit that point where the time of possession, to me, is going to be one of the most crucial things that I'm going to be looking at, because a lot of times, like a team like the Eagles, they're going to be on the field for like 20 or 30 or 40 minutes, and they can dictate how the game goes. And that's exactly what happened. Pittsburgh was not able to get Philly off the field as much. And in doing so, that's probably one of the reasons why we lost. And then, not to mention, Philly was able to convert on third down. Pittsburgh was struggling. When we look at these stats, right? Pittsburgh's third down conversion, 3 for 10. Philly's third down conversions, 10 for 17. The stats don't lie, folks. I understand that there are some Steelers fans that are, a little bit frustrated about it and upset and whatever the case may be. But the fact of the matter is, the Eagles are what the Steelers are trying to be. It's like that older sibling. You're trying to, always get a chance to beat your older sibling, whether that be in racing, whether that be in sports, or whether that be in whatever, right? And most of the times you won't be able to because they're just better than you. And that happens. The Eagles roster from start to finish is very much more equipped than what Pittsburgh is. Now, Pittsburgh is trying to mimic what the Eagles are doing, but the Eagles are just more complete. When we look at it, they have a great receiving, well, not really a great receiving core, but they have a really good receiving core in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They have a solid elite run game in Saquon Barkley. They still have a top 5 offensive line, even with the departure and retirement of Jason Kelce. The defense is starting to look amazing, especially with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Zach Bond is looking like an all-pro. Quinyon Mitchell is looking like Darrelle Revis. You have Cooper DeJean. You have C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They got stars everywhere, right? They got dogs everywhere. And they are more battle-tested than what Pittsburgh is. And that's fine. Now, when we shift things over to Pittsburgh, they were going to struggle anyway, because why? George Pickens wasn't going to play. Deshaun Elliott wasn't going to play. And Larry O was not going to play. Especially George Pickens. We are now seeing that this Steelers team is a completely different Steelers team without George Pickens being on the field. And granted, I understand there are, the Mike Williams fans that are saying, well, what about Mike Williams? What about Mike Williams? I haven't been able to fully see the All-22 film from start to finish, but there were some instances where, Mike wasn't really creating a whole lot of separation and he really wasn't getting open a few times. That's just what it is. And that's okay. But, the one thing that I definitely said as halftime was ending, the one thing I said was put it up in the air. And lo and behold, guess what happens? They do a flea flicker. Russ gives it to Calvin Austin. Boom, big play. And then they just start to march down the field, marching. And then next thing you know, they're getting close to the red zone. And then what happens? Najee fumbles the ball. Now I understand there are some people that are saying, oh, this is the reason why, Najee's not going to be with the Steelers no more. It happens. It happens. It's okay. This game really doesn't mean a whole lot. This game is just for bragging rights. That's all it is. It doesn't have any playoff implications whatsoever. Because why? We already clinched our playoff berth anyway, because why? Miami lost and the Colts lost yesterday. So it's okay. We're fine. We're fine, Steelers fans. It's okay. Hey, listen, I need you to breathe with me, okay? I need you to woo-saw. I need you to woo-saw with me for a moment, okay? Everything is going to be fine. Now, back to this game. The offense was struggling, okay? At this point, I think we have to be a little bit more creative with the play calling, especially trying to put it up in the air. You have Calvin Austin, a very shifty, fast receiver that is able to create separation fairly quickly. You have Pat Freiermuth. You have Mike Williams. You have all these other receivers. You have to be a little bit more creative in utilizing them, because now we don't know exactly how long George Pickens is going to be out for. So we have to prepare that he is not going to be with us for the entire regular season. And he'll be ready for us, once the playoff starts. That is a realistic scenario that the team has to prepare for. And so that means that you have to switch up the play calling a little bit. When we switch it over to the defense was doing their thing. TJ Watt was, being TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith was being Alex Highsmith. Cam was being Cam. But again, you started to see the struggles that the team was having because even though they was preventing Saquon from, running here, there, everywhere, guess what? They was being beat up in the air. And so what had happened was instead of Minka playing in the backfield, you have Minka playing in the box. You have DeMonte KZ playing, in the backfield. Even though, yes, Minka is a really good tackler, you would have rather had him be in the backfield because he's going to be able to keep a lid on any of those deep passes. And that's why you would have needed Deshaun Elliott even more because Deshaun Elliott is a big enough safety that for one, he can play in the box, and two, when it comes to those downhill hits, he can deliver them. Compared to having someone like a Minka who is your ball hawk type safety. Just saying. When we saw Dante Jackson was definitely struggling a little bit. There were a few plays where he looked like a deer in headlights, but the secondary was getting beat up. A.J. Brown was beating him up. Devontae Smith was beating him up. And so this is ultimately, the reasons why the Steelers lost. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. We have to focus on getting healthy, preparing ourselves for Saturday because we have to go up against Baltimore. And then we have to prepare ourselves again for the Chiefs next week. And then you have to face the Bengals, right? So again, it's okay, Steelers fans. I understand that you're upset. It's all right. It's all good in the hood, man. But listen, don't worry. They're going to have their time. Because guess what? When they lose, when they don't go to the Super Bowl, oh, guess what? I'm going to be right there. I'm going to be right there. Popcorn in hand, in the most comfiest chair I can find, the biggest drink that I can find. And I'm going to be he and ha from here to there. There's nothing they can do about it. Better yet, I might even use the picture of them walking off the field in disappointment as a profile picture. Well, not a profile picture, but an episode picture. Just you wait. Now that we're done with that game, let's get into the other games, all right? So, Lions and Bills, okay? As I said, as I predicted it was going to be a high-scoring game, and what happened? It's a high-scoring game. So, Josh Allen, 23 for 34, 362 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 10.6 yards per attempt, and a 67.6 completion percentage. James Cook, 14 attempts for 105 rushing yards, 7.5 rushing yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Ty Johnson, 5 targets for 5 receptions, 114 receiving yards, and 22.8 receiving yards per reception. Jared Goff, 38 for 59, 494 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 8.4 yards per attempt, and a 64.4 completion percentage. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 attempts for 31 rushing yards, 3.2 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 18 targets for 14 receptions, 193 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 13.8 receiving yards per reception. This was a really good game. Me personally, I feel like this should have been the Sunday night football game just of how great it was. Okay, this was a heavyweight bout. Okay, when one person scores, the other person scores, and it just kept on going for 4 quarters straight. This is the game, in my mind, that I feel like this seals the MVP conversation up. Okay, right now, in my mind, Josh Allen is the MVP, 100% of the way. I understand, Saquon is close to, getting 2,000 yards, and Lamar is, he's starting to win again and whatnot. I get all that, but Josh Allen right now is the MVP. What he has been able to do without a Stephon Diggs type of receiver has been phenomenal. They have now relied more on the run game, the other pieces that they have on that offense to win them games. Not to mention the defense looks a little bit more polished than what they did against the Rams, because the Rams torched them, especially in the secondary. They torched them, cooked them, hibachi, grilled, get the rosemary, get the thyme, get the butter, and scoop, 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 scoop. That's just how crazy it was. But back to this game, though. For the Lions, you lost, but you lost even more. Now, apparently, David Montgomery is out for the season. Carlton Davis is out for the season. Aleem McNeil is out for the season. And Khalil Dorsey is out for the season. I'm just going to read off some of the players that are on the injured reserve list right now. Well, that are injured, okay? Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Kyle Pecco, Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, Makai Wingo, Nate Lynn, David Bada, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Jalen Reeves-Maben, Malcolm Rodriguez, Carlton Davis, Aeneas Rickstraw Jr., Khalil Dorsey, Afitu Melifanu, David Montgomery, Khalif Raymond, Anton Green, Connor Galvin, Nathan Muti, and Michael Badley. That is a very extensive list, folks. And a lot of these injuries are season-ending injuries. That's why they've been trying to pluck different players from other teams' practice squads just to, just try to make things fit. Because as of right now, their spot for the number one seed is a little bit shaky right now. Because why? There is a three-way fight on who will get the number one seed. And those three teams are the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles. And all of this depends on the remaining games in this season. So right now, yes, the Lions are, quote unquote, the number one seed, but it's not completely locked in, because any of those teams can get it from the Lions. So again, I don't know how things are going to shape up, but if I'm the Lions, I am pushing hard to try to get that number one seed so you can get that first round bye. You can get some of these players that are injured. You can have them, back in the lineup, and you can prepare yourself for a more, I wouldn't say weaker opponent, but you can prepare yourself for, a better matchup that favors you more, compared to having to grind to get to the NFC Championship and then let alone the Super Bowl. Because remember, Hutch is still out. Hutch won't be able to come back until the Super Bowl, even though Hutch has said publicly that, just make it to the Super Bowl, guys, and then I got you guys, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't know. I don't know, because right now the Vikings are on a hot streak, the Eagles are on a hot streak, and the Lions are banged up bad. Now, I don't know how exactly they're going to be able to, continue to win, but hey, it's the Lions. They always find crazy ways to win. Now, on to the Washington and New Orleans game. Yes, we have to talk about that game. Jaden Daniels, 25 for 31, 226 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.3 yards per attempt, and an 80.6 completion percentage. Jaden Daniels, again, 11 attempts for 66 rushing yards, 6 rushing yards per carry, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Terry McLaurin, 10 targets for 7 receptions, 73 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, and 10.4 receiving yards per reception. Spencer Rattler, 10 for 21, 135 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 6.4 yards per attempt, and a 46.6 completion percentage. Kendre Miller, 9 attempts for 46 rushing yards, 5.1 rushing yards per carry, and 3 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 7 targets for 2 receptions, 64 receiving yards, and 32 receiving yards per reception. This is what I will say about this game. And this may be somewhat of a hot topic, but we'll talk more about it once the season is completely over. Spencer Rattler showed a little bit of something. Now, I'm not saying he's, the franchise quarterback, but I am saying he had a little grit to him, okay? He almost carried this team to a victory over Washington. I'm just saying, all right? Because the quarterback that they had in prior to that, he was a deer in headlights. He could not do a ding darn thing, all right? But when we shift things over to Washington, though, Washington was really doing their thing, okay? Terry McLaurin was making some crazy catches. The offense started to look like, its old self before they started to lose against a few teams, Steelers. But moving forward, okay, the defense was doing their thing as well. Now, Once the game started to unravel a little bit, that's when things started to get a little bit shaky. Because then Spencer Rattler was just like, okay, you know what? I really don't have nothing really to play for, but a roster spot and just to show teams that I'm that guy. Because originally when he was coming out of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, people were saying he was a first round pick. Me personally, I didn't see it. I thought he was a second round pick, but that's another story for another day. But he was showing a lot. He was showing a lot of grit. He was, when the pocket was collapsing, he stood in there, made some key throws. He was just doing it all. He was putting on a clinic. If you are a Saints fan, I think that's something that you can, ride into next year. Because right now you have uncertainty with Derek Carr. You don't have another quarterback on this roster right now that you can say, oh, they can be a good replacement or a good bridge for the time being. Like, no, Spencer Rattler, I think he could do it. He showed the arm talent. He showed the mobility. He showed the play calling. He showed his ability to adapt to the different types of coverages and the different types of schemes and blitzes that Washington was throwing at him. He was holding his own. He was doing his thing. I'm sorry. If I am the Saints GM, I'm riding with Spencer Rattler. Young quarterback, cheap, and you can build around him. Compared to trying to roll it with Derek Carr and you guys don't get anywhere. Just saying. Now, for Washington, though, we're getting to the end of the season. Hey, you want to keep on stacking up these wins. Because, again, you are in a spot where most likely you're going to go up against a tough opponent in the playoffs. I'm just letting you know right now. You may have to go up against one of those teams on the West. Either the Rams or the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. And you do not want that because I know you're going to lose. But at the same time, this is a game that you can, leave your hat on because Jaden Daniels looked really good. From running to passing to everything else, Jaden Daniels looked like him old self. He looked comfortable. And that is something that you can bank on. The run game was actually looking pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Now, I'm not just saying that because Jaden Daniels was the run game. No. But, again, this team has surpassed all expectations I think that everyone had of this team prior to the season starting. Because if you would have told me that Washington will be where they are right now, I would have called you a liar. But so far, they have proved the naysayers wrong. And this further proves that the front office hit on the Jaden Daniels draft pick. And now you have to continue to surround him with talent because I'm telling you right now, if they continue to hit on their draft picks and if they bring in a big fish of a receiver for Jaden Daniels, this team is going to be super competitive. I would not be surprised if they make an NFC championship run because they're not making to the Super Bowl. I'm just letting you guys know that for all you Commanders fans out there. Just letting it be known. I don't even know why in the world I'm even talking like this. It's the ADHD. Now, on to the last game. A game that I low-key was actually starting to like. It was a really good game. I had to watch this game a few times back. Green Bay, Seattle, okay? Jordan Love, 20 for 27, 229 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per attempt, and a 74.1 completion percentage. Josh Jacobs, 26 attempts for 94 rushing yards, 3.6 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Christian Watson, 6 targets for 3 receptions, 56 receiving yards, 18.7 receiving yards per reception. Geno Smith, 15 for 19, 149 passing yards, 1 interception, 6.8 yards per attempt, and a 78.9 completion percentage. Sam Howell, 5 for 14, 24 passing yards, 1 pick, 1.7 yards per attempt, and a 35.7 completion percentage. Now, before I go any further, you're probably wondering, why do I have 2 quarterbacks in? Because Geno Smith got hurt, and then Sam Howell had to come in. I think he had to finish the game. All right, cool. Moving forward. Zach Charbonnet, 8 attempts for 54 rushing yards, 6.8 rushing yards per carry, and 1 touchdown and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. I was getting ahead of myself. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 12 targets for 10 receptions, 83 receiving yards, and 8.3 receiving yards per reception. Josh Jacobs, since going to the Packers, has been phenomenal. Like, I think we have to talk about how there's somewhat of like a little bit of a renaissance with the running back position. when we look at, some of the tier 1 and tier 2 running backs who were free agents and signed with other teams and the impact that they've had since joining those teams, like Saquon Barkley, their run game, elite. The Packers run game, low key, you could probably make a strong argument that it's either, really good to close to elite. Okay. Christian Watson, this young receiving core, they're doing their thing. Okay. Jordan Love was doing their thing. And when we look at this game, this shows the inexperience when it comes to the Seahawks, especially with their defense, right? Everyone is still getting used to the new scheme. Everyone's getting used to, new players being added and whatnot. So it's a lot of growing pains for this Seahawks defense because it is fairly young. But, this isn't as bad as what people think it is. I still believe that the Seahawks are definitely going to be in the playoffs. Now, are they going to be high in the playoffs, low in the playoffs, in the middle? I don't know, because even in their division, it's still too close to call, because you still have the Rams that are still in it. You still have the Cardinals that are still in it. Half of the division is still in it. So it's still anyone's division at this point. Now, if I could make a prediction right now, who do I think will probably win? I would say right now it's the Rams. The Rams right now, since their bye, have been red hot. And they have gone up against some very tough defenses. They have gone up against some tough teams, and they have been able to hold their own. You have a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford who is very experienced. You have a dangerous receiving core in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. The run game is sufficient. The defense is also a core that you cannot sleep on, with Jared Verse, creating the pressure that he's been able to create, and Brandon Fisk being just a wrecking ball on the defensive line as well. This isn't a team that you can sleep on. So only time will tell. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you are listening, please make sure you guys are sharing, subscribing, turn the notification bell on, downloading the episodes, leaving a 5-star review, whatever and wherever you listen to the Football Junkies podcast. For my YouTube people, okay, Football Junkies Pod, okay, Football Junkies Pod, okay. When you go on the YouTube, there are direct links that will take you to all the Football Junkies content, as well as our link tree. So you can just go on there, have a blast. Okay, we got the RSS feed link up there. We got the Apple Podcast, Spotify, you name it. The links are up there. Okay, I probably have to do a little bit of cleaning up, but don't you worry about that. Okay, let the GM, who currently is not on the team right now, take care of that for you. Now, for my podcast listeners, okay, Football Junkies Podcast, okay? Football Junkies Podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. I think you can even find it on Pandora or wherever that you listen to podcasts, okay? We are most likely there, okay? Make sure you guys leave a 5-star review. Make sure you guys download the episodes so that I can recognize and figure out exactly what fix that you guys love and want more of, okay? Now, for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, okay? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkie Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is together, not spaced. Keep on saying it. Got to keep on emphasizing it, all right? For my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, okay? Football Junkies Pod. I know. Don't have to tell me. I know. Clips. Got to give me some time, okay? Got to make sure these clips are right for you guys, because I know you guys love the clips, and I love the clips just as much as you guys love the clips, all right? So, as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. All those great things and more. I love you guys. I hope you guys have a safe holiday season. Don't drink and drive. Don't do anything crazy. Just make sure you guys are listening to the Football Junkies podcast, and make sure you guys are following the Football Junkies podcast, because then I will make an announcement on if we're going to have an episode next week or not. So I'll probably let you guys know probably maybe by Saturday or Sunday. I don't know. Just have to see how things go, because I know the holiday season and whatnot. So I'm rambling. But as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace and love. I'm out.